I still haven't heard your son in the background, JD.
You haven't heard the Super Mario Brothers happening upstairs with the 4-year-old?
No.
You'll probably hear some footsteps pattering around for a peanut butter jelly sandwich or something.
Actually sounds good.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. The home office has provided for a few years now. I mean, I was working remote before it was cool. I've been doing it almost 10 years.
Huh.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I mean,
struggle with it.
I could see myself doing like a hybrid setup where, there's a local Denver office I go into as needed. But I still get out to the San Francisco office fairly often, which is good.
Oh yeah,
Well, that's
Mhm.
unfortunate.
It's
got-
in the bell.
You
What's
got a
that?
San Francisco, don't
What? I couldn't hear you.
you've got to fly to San Francisco, don't you?
That's true. Yeah, it's still a trip. It's one that isn't it's not a local office, but it is the office. At least for me. We have a big New Jersey office. We got, other ones all over the world like Singapore and London, but I hail from the belly of the beast. That San Francisco office is like right next to Oracle Park, if that's what they're still calling it. I know it used to be AT&T, and then it was, it's been a few different names, but the ballpark.
Don't follow it closely enough to know what it's called anymore.
No, me neither.
But I like to. My office is 10 minutes away, and try to get in there a few times a week. It's just some days, especially when the kids are acting up in the morning, it's like, okay, I'm gonna
Oh, yeah.
another cup of
get
coffee
me out of here.
and just walk
How
downstairs and get rolling here.
how old is everybody's kids?
Well, Jeff, you got the old ones.
Yeah, my son's 20, daughter's going to be 16.
I got 14, 7, and 2.
You're still in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
He's deep in it.
But Jeff, 16-year-olds still make a lot of noise in the morning, right?
You got
It's a
cut off.
16-year-old daughter. She makes enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's noisy.
Nah, she's not too bad.
Yeah.
Neither of the kids are too noisy.
I have a couple of cavemen right now, 4 and 2. They're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mine are. It really depends with 3 kids trying to get them all out the door at the same time. Which one is going to have the most problems? They're all going to have problems, but which one's going to?
My daughter's always going to be the last one, guaranteed. Of course, she takes after me with that shit.
Well, JD, thank you for coming on today and in such short notice. For those of you who have been keeping up with Refresh Friday for the past couple of episodes, we've been talking about having Brian Pash on this date, and I did get a text this morning from Drew about that, by the way. But Brian had an emergency come up, so we're trying to have him on later in the year. And JD, we were trying to have him on later in the year, and he was able to jump in at the last minute. And here we are, still having Refresh Friday this week. So thanks for helping us juggle.
Yeah. Thanks for. Hopefully you don't regret it. I got big shoes to fill, so I followed Brian for a fair amount of time, and being a little bit removed from automotive, it's nice to come back in a medium like this.
Well, you've been following Dealer Refresh for a while, haven't you?
I have, I'll admittedly off and on. my profile will say I joined in 2014, but I was
I was
the
giving them some shit about that.
No
the
posts.
definition of a lurker. Yeah. I think when I finally made my first post a month or two ago, Alex was like, "You set the record for, not posting and being there." So dealer refresh,
years.
That's 9 years.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm not very good at math, but I mean, it's got to be up there. Uh, but I would chime in. I really liked to have sort of what the pulse was, both from dealers and vendors operating with them, and sort of what the tone was there. And when I was at Carfax, that's sort of when I joined. It's on the advent of listings, so it was good to see what dealers were saying about um, just digital marketing, because we were moving into sort of a new space there. And I checked back in when I was at Podium, see what people are saying about Google reviews, SEO, things of that nature. But the last 2 years, I have been on another planet. So it's I'm starting to see a lot of the things that I'm doing today um, aligning with trends and challenges that car dealers are talking about in dealer refresh, and so it kind of lured me back.
Well, that thread that got you in there, or at least posting after 9 years,
Yeah.
right up your alley with some 10 DLC challenges some of our community members were having.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
It's been great fun.
yeah,
For
Give
us,
us give us a quick down on your history in the industry.
my background in the industry, automotive or telco, or
Yeah,
kind of.
whatever's relevant for you.
Sure. So I guess I've been calling myself a self-proclaimed car guy turned tech, but I
It's a lot of
started
that.
out, yeah, a lot of those. So I sold cars in college. Carfax gave me a start when I graduated, selling their Advantage Dealer program. I was an inside sales rep for them for a couple years. They brought me into the field. That's when I moved to Colorado to launch that used car listings program. Sold that, brought it to market for 4 years there. And then in an effort to move to software, Podium was a great fit for that transition. I was still selling to car dealers. I knew how to talk to car dealers, except I was selling more of a traditional SaaS platform to do it. And after doing that for a year, Vonage picked me up, and it was an interesting move for me because I was going from a vendor, software or auto, whatever you would want to call it, to being a supplier to the software platforms. It was an interesting move. I had no clue what I was getting into in terms of a learning curve. So the last couple of years has been learning a lot of how the sausage is made in the software that you use. All the moving pieces behind getting a communication channel stood up, keeping it running, um, and things of that nature.
yeah, that's probably some scary sausage.
It can be, yeah. When they sat me down, first 2 weeks of acronyms were being thrown at me that I and just the sheer volume of them in one sentence. You're talking about, SIP and whatever you might be thrown at, and from a car guy like me that just like to talk about, VDPs, like that was a new level for me for sure.
Well, Vonage. So most people, I believe, and I was one of them, really just thought of it as a VoIP system and didn't know there were so many other things that Vonage did. You just think of the old grandma ads, like, here's a new phone for grandma.
Yeah.
Woohoo commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the old Woohoo commercials. I even made jokes about when I started here and when they reached out to me. So I was in the same boat, and that we still sort of have the, oh, I didn't know Vonage did that today. Uh, even outside of automotive, and I think sometimes that can be a little bit intentional. We're the lumber yard that supplies channels to a software platform that would be the primary name in that. And we've come a long way since, I'd say, about 2016 was when Vonage started making a series of key acquisitions to really provide any need that a business would have in cloud communications. Whether you're a software platform that sort of needs the Legos to build your house, or you are an enterprise call center that needs, contact center solutions or unified communications or whatever that might be. And now we're at the point where we can deliver comms on SMS, voice, video. We can do authentication, sprinkle a little AI in there every once in a while, though you want to be careful with that hype. But it's really come a long way.
Yep. And admittedly, my company, Frickin' Tech, has been moving over to Vonage. That's how I've gotten to know you all and your services. So we originally started with Twilio, and some changes over there, which we'll probably get into a little later, brought us your way.
Yeah.
Who else is in the game?
As far as like a communications provider, that's sort of the large umbrella that Vonage operates in. My corner is what's called CPaaS. It's communication platform as a service, and that's what a Twilio or a Bandwidth or a Cinch or an 8x8 is. So there are other players. The big bad gorilla in North America is Twilio. It's a household name. Everyone knows that. But what they might not know is that Vonage is included in that same traffic profile that you interact with likely every single day. When you look at a company like Uber or Airbnb or these large tech companies, they have multiple providers sending you a text message regardless of the region, and you're just kind of battling for traffic in that. Vonage, last I checked, they kind of, there's a tug of war in number 2 globally in market share with us and some others. If you look at APAC, we're number 1. Our roots are in the UK, so we have a really strong Europe presence. But what you'll find, typically a lot of companies are leveraging Twilio because they're strong in North America. They're just known. A lot of other companies can do the same thing they can in the US. They use us for international, and then we kind of leak back in. But the last year or two, we've noticed that that's been operating less like a commodity in the US, SMS. And we can get into that more. It's some of the reasons why Alex came to us.
Well, let's talk about the reasons you're on today. Can we start with 10DLC? And
Yep.
Speaking
what
of
it
acronyms.
is? Yeah, will definitely be some acronyms.
Yeah, I'll try to keep the acronyms to a minimum, or if I use one, I'll tell you what they mean. And so 10DLC stands for 10-digit long code. It's no different than a regular mobile number that you're used to with the local area code. The only reason for a different name in the US, and this is US specific, by the way, is an effort to control the traffic that operates on those number types or that network. The optimistic view from the carriers would be that they can protect their network and their subscribers, people who use their services, from unwanted spam, while in turn, with like more of a know your customer type effort, they can give the businesses a better ability to connect with users on that number type. So it's not that it's a bad idea. It's just there's going to be growing pains, and there has been, and there will continue to be, in the way that they're now regulating a channel that really didn't have any sort of oversight before. It's a process.
I hear that peanut butter and jelly grab going on.
And I can throw the earbuds in if you guys want me to.
That's all right. It's fun.
So the general gist of what's required in 10DLC now is that a business needs to register themselves as a brand. Under that brand, they'll have campaigns associated to that umbrella. A campaign is essentially a use case. So if I'm a brand, let's just say Mercedes, and I'm going to operate as Mercedes, there are a number of things I might use a mobile number for. Let's say that it's going to be marketing. Okay, so I'm registering a marketing campaign, and not like a campaign in the sense that you guys like thinking like here's one individual marketing campaign. It's the definition of what that use case will be and what you will be doing with that number. And then you need to stay within the set expectations of what you registered that campaign for.
And getting approved for a campaign, that's a little bit of effort, would you say?
Yeah, it's more effort than you'll expect, and the not just the effort, but the requirements of submitting the brief and keeping it live is a bit of a moving target. And that's what's made things tough. So you're now asking businesses to provide a ton of information, stay within the confines of like what content or what structure like a message needs to be. And not only that, but like the framework in which you set up your registration has been something that has evolved, and sometimes without warning or with a little warning. And it's unrealistic to expect a car dealer to know what's going on. So they'll typically look to the platform that supplies that communication, like any kind of CRM. But even that CRM has a supply chain that's happening behind them to actually get things done. And they're just the messenger in this assembly line that's happening with 3 other parties. And it can be a bit of herding cats, and who you have in your corner as a software platform, and your direction that you give a software platform to then give to their dealers needs to be clear to avoid a game of telephone.
We just had a great comment from Ryan Everson. He was saying that, throw it back up here, call providers are unique, that as private enterprises, they're actually stricter than the government. And JD, would you say that that is because they're sitting on kind of this gold platform that's hasn't been corrupted by spammy emails or robocalls? Or
when we say call providers, are we talking about carriers like T-Mobile? And okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. Right. That they have a position of power that they are more in their right to use because they're a private business. They can, or not, I mean, they're publicly traded companies, but they are a business that can determine what does and doesn't happen within their service. So yes, they are more specific. They are more strict. They can change the rules faster than the government ever could. And they exercise those rights. They are our government. For guys like me, they are the government. And you have to learn how to play nice with them for sure because they're important.
What would you say is the average time it takes to get a campaign approved through the carriers?
It should be like 5 days. Lately, it's been more like 2 or 3 weeks, and in bad cases, it can sit there for a couple months and no one knows why. And well, dealers don't know why. If you have a campaign that's sitting around that you've been told is compliant in nature, someone's dropping the ball up further down the chain that you have no control over, and that's not your fault. Uh, the reason why it's gone from, let's stick to like the 1 week timeline versus a 2 or 3 week timeline. The reason why it's moving to a 2 or 3 week timeline in some cases is because as of this year, the crackdown for 10DLC has really started to begin. So they have told you what you need to do, but now they're enforcing it. And in that enforcement, you've now opened Pandora's box, and it's a mess. A lot of people took shortcuts. A lot of people just weren't organized, and now everyone in the assembly line is having to do manual reviews. I think that's the big piece that's causing delays, is that you no longer can depend on a programmatic solution for all of this stuff to happen automatically. Actual people at 4 different levels need to look at it. So multiply that by a
Dang.
couple. Yeah.
And would you say that there was one particular provider who might have been a little more lax on some of this a while back that maybe brought
Uh,
some, or can
I
you?
mean, I think we're all guilty to a degree, right? If you look at carriers changing the rules, you have a centralized hub for all these registrations called the campaign registry that they're just doing the best they can with the information that they get, and then they're going to have to change rules. And then you have the CPAS communications provider like me or Twilio or the like that is actually interacting with the businesses that are submitting these. And there's definite possibility that another big name was maybe a little more of like a self-serve nature in supplying these. So it's not that they were being lazy or malicious. It's just that they maybe didn't provide the guidance that needed to happen in order to set a framework up in the beginning. And now that framework for a specific business could be incorrect altogether. The responsiveness to make a change could have been reactive, not proactive. And if they're inconsistent in being engaged with that business, now there's a backlog and no context to what's going on.
Well, one of the things that prompted all this was just a discussion that was posted over in the forums. Not to single out a CRM, but we've got a lot of users, including myself, that use eLead CRM. And eLead was sending out notifications, I'd say close to a year in advance about this
Okay.
big change. Um, but if you weren't paying attention to those emails and alerts that I believe would randomly, or every morning before you log into the system, there's an alert area. But if you weren't paying attention to that, it's not like, at least on this side of things, it's not like I ever received a direct phone call. It was all email communications.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I've got a few connections, and as soon as I saw it, we were able to make sure that we had everything implemented right away. But even with that being said, even with that happening and having the connection, we still were down about a couple weeks until some other things got cleared out. Um, and then that prompted more discussions in the forums around, again, not to single out eLead, but dealerships having issues being down for 2.5 months uh, with uh, with their ability to send and receive text messages through the platform. So it's, I'm reading a thread here right now. It's like 23 stores with this particular dealer group. I think, was it Rick? Rick had some issues. I helped him out with that one. Well, got him in contact with someone that could help him out. Um, and what was, it just seems to me it's just a lot of weird, uh, simple data errors, such as you've got certain forms that you need to send into, and all that information needs to be verified. So, a W-9 forms, if that doesn't check out, then you got to check out the CP575 notice form, which I think is also an EIN confirmation letter. So whatever data is on those forms apparently has to match exactly. Now, does that need to match at eLead, or is that something that's facilitated from eLead to, to the text carrier platform?
All the above. So the fact that they're calling out the EIN, or so like your tax license, your tax ID, basically, the reason they're calling
Mm-hmm.
that out is interesting to me, because let's say that Twilio a long time ago got direction from TCR or the campaign registry, who got their direction from the carriers, that 2 years ago, all we really need to do is know who you are. Who you are could be anybody. Okay, so eLead could have gotten direction from Twilio saying, set eLead up as the brand. That's who you're who's sending it, right? And eLead is looking to them for guidance on that. So eLead sets up a brand. Okay, eLead, what are you going to be sending on this? Okay, you're going to be doing two-factor authentication, marketing, and notifications. Cool. Set up these 3 campaigns for those, and you're set. Okay. 2 years goes by. They throw hundreds of numbers in there. And then the carriers come back and go, whoa, 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 no. We want to know who owns the number, who's using the number. Is it a car dealership? That's a different tax ID. That's a different person. It's not eLead. So now we need to know who that is. And all of a sudden, eLead's framework, and I'm not saying that this is the case. This is anecdotal, right?
Yeah.
But imagine that worst case scenario where eLead's saying, well, okay, so now we have to completely change the way that we built this, and we can't just do that easily. But we're going to try because that's what they're telling us to do. So imagine eLead's position. I want to give them a little bit of grace because it's very possible that they were misdirected, and not in a malicious way, but it's just right. So I mean that's an example of what could have happened. Or what if, let's go more optimistic, in that they do have it set up in the correct way, where the dealership is the brand, that dealership has its own campaigns, and at one point the tax ID confirmation didn't matter and now it does, and everybody just needs to load that in, but they're herding cats to get it done under a short timeline.
There was I think this plays into a question that Ryan Everson had about dealers avoid using texting templates from the CRM, because salespeople just walk in and text all their customers, first thing in the morning with the same thing over and over again. And
I mean, I don't necessarily see an issue with that. I mean, like, we could make the argument of like its effectiveness versus like the operational nature of it. Why it might be smart for that CRM and the dealerships to help them do that, keep things relatively templated, if it is sort of like a run-in-the-mill notification, is from a content perspective. Because now that there's so much more regulation, on what you're sending over that SMS channel. If it gets a little too loose, then you could have a content issue, and the carriers randomly block you for um, an unknown reason, and then you got to go figure it out while your number's blocked. So there's a healthy balance there. I lean more on the side of being able to have freedom and use the conversational nature of the channel. But if it can be a template, just keep it a template. So it's one less thing to worry about from like a regulatory standpoint.
He's got a follow-up request as well on that one. Are there any trigger words or phrases that he should be instructing his salespeople to avoid?
Well, I see he's
tracking.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned he said like one-to-one. Like more of a free-form conversation should be a free-form conversation, but where you can get yourself in trouble is any sort of like um, prohibited content. And that's all defined under this umbrella called shaft. So it's like firearms, sex, tobacco, things like that. So the carriers have filters that are ready to go anytime you say weed or marijuana or CBD or anything, drastically inappropriate. And they'll snag that programmatically and block the number. Will it happen like on the first instance? Not guaranteed. But marijuana just has been, it's like your first, like, not that car dealers are talking about weed, but it's just an example of there are words, there are no-nos. No, they won't give us a list. And because the filters change so much, they probably just want to say.
Katie, would that be on the initial text? But I mean,
no, in the channel, period.
Really?
So
Yeah.
What if I'm having a text conversation with Jeff? We're just, we've had a million texts in the past, and I just mentioned marijuana to him for some reason.
That's the difference between peer-to-peer, so P2P, and application to person, or which is A to P. So P2P communications, peer-to-peer, would be just us talking on a text. And it's still America. You can still talk about what you want on that. Application to person is where the regulation is. And again, the main goal is to keep bad actors out.
Yeah, I get that.
So like if your salesperson is using their personal phone to text a customer, they're in the clear. They're fine. There's no regulation there. But I'm sure I could go into.
Could get in trouble if you say the same. If you type the wrong thing or text the wrong thing, it could get you in big trouble.
It could, but there's not going to be a carrier looking for it. And I'm sure there's all sorts of other discussions about, letting your sales reps use their personal phones to represent your business. So that's why a lot of dealers have wised up to use software platforms. So whether it's, they're downloading the Podium app on their phone and using Podium to text to send them, then that's a smart idea. But if they're using Podium, all of a sudden they're using an application, and they're going to be subject to what the carriers do and don't want on it.
Does that put a lot of limitations around space? So if you're sending photos, videos, etc.?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, MMS, which is when you send a picture, it's MMS instead of SMS.
Yeah.
It's a great medium. And do they have computers looking at the actual image of it? I don't know. I haven't come across it.
Probably.
If there's a manual review, which there's manual reviews going on right now for your 10 DLC brands and campaigns. And you will have someone at T-Mobile go in and look at it, look at the content, look at the framework, look at the registration, with their own educated eyes and decide whether you should live or die. So if there's a picture of who knows what, someone might see it. They have the ability to see it.
So if a customer leaves their marijuana in their trade, don't send them a text and a picture of got it.
Even though it's a great joke, or you're just trying to be a good Samaritan to return that weed to its rightful owner, maybe just do it in your own text thread, not in your CRM.
Pick up the phone.
Yeah, pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting to know. I mean, it's not shocking.
No, and it's not unfair necessarily either. It's if you try to think about the reasons why all of this is happening is to keep bad actors out. The key is to be clear, concise, efficient in how legitimate businesses like dealers navigate.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. So you mentioned earlier, Twilio is kind of the big gorilla out there. And I think potentially some of what happened with eLead could have been on them. We still use Twilio for some things, and as we're shifting more over to Vonage, but it did seem like things were a little easier to get started with Twilio. They were, at least for us, it was not as rigorous. They're kind of quick, and what I'm seeing now in the changes over there, like the support has gone to hell. Like there's no other way to put it. It had phenomenal support when we first started using them, and then it just went to, okay, there's no dedicated account manager, any of that. You're in the regular support channel with everyone else, and good luck. And then every time you send an email or a form submission with needing help, you're going to get a totally different person every time, and you're starting over from scratch over and over. And it was a real pain. And Twilio, like I feel like they grew really big, really fast. And then what, did the shit hit the fan? I don't know.
Well, I remember when they had a sales team, I was getting communicated to left and right several years ago to use the system. They were one dealer refresh representatives and were reaching out to me.
I do want to hit Ryan's question. I saw you going back to the content piece just before I go too far.
Okay.
Financing and credit applications. The reason why that might get flagged is because carriers hate debt collection. And it's not that you're collecting debt. It's that it's a little close for comfort for them, and they just say no. So that's like one specific. Like
it's a bit like payment advertising on Facebook.
Yeah. So hopefully that answers that. But yeah, back to, sorry, Jeff. I did feel like I kind of cut you off on you were talking. Okay. Yeah, with Twilio, a lot of what you've experienced, Alex, is common. The good and the bad. Like, you are right that they made a very simple onboarding process. Their APIs are simple to integrate, and they're of high quality. Like, they are a good provider in the product that they deliver, the manner that they market it and explain it. It's very simple. They've done a great job. That's why they grew so fast, so quick. And what you might find on the bad side is that works great for a developer who doesn't need much. They're just self-serve. They've made it easy for them to be a self-serve customer. And when they need the occasional conversation or support that isn't very urgent, that they'll get what they need. But what happens is oftentimes you'll grow to the point that you need dedicated, consistent, knowledgeable support. And you're not going to quite get it at Twilio. until you're a Fortune 500 company. So there was always, in the last few years, whether they were blowing up or they were great or they were not, there was always this like chasm that you're crossing, and that Vonage Vonage's more hands-on approach really filled well. And so you get a company that gets one or two rounds of funding, or they grow a little bit in the U.S. and they're really gaining steam. They need more. They're not getting it. And that's been the case for years. That hasn't been in this last year when money got more expensive, and a lot of people have seen struggles. It's just been fundamentally an area where we filled a gap. And companies would graduate to realizing that they can have more than one communication provider supplying their software platform. And if you're looking at like 2 years ago when SMS was still more of a commodity, you'd get to the point where you kind of choose who you like more. The price is going to be the same. It's the same thing. You're just sending a text message. Anyone can do it. But JD takes care of me, and I don't even know who is at this other one. And in the last year, Twilio, with its growth, and in the same boat as everybody else meeting challenges of the market, has shifted to profitability over growth. They were growth at all costs, and now you'll hear their CEO talking about profitability on any press release that he does. You got to think about what that really means to the end user sometimes. We've been in a fortunate position with Vonage to be in a good cash position after an acquisition. And the ethos of really how we're going to support dealers hasn't changed. I said dealers. I'm just used to selling to dealers, but companies.
Gotcha. Well, unfortunately, Dave the Wave on YouTube has had some really good experiences with Twilio. So, I guess that's always going to be the case. There's going to be doing some who don't.
We have a guest appearance from my son here, but hey, bud, can you go see Auntie Jen real quick?
Have you heard of any other CRMs out there having the same issues that we are running into with eLead?
That's sort of what I'm curious to grow to find out. I really wouldn't be surprised if there were other CRMs that are running up against the same issues, where the landscape's changed a little bit and some housekeeping needs to be done, and they don't really have the support they need to get it done, at least on time.
Yeah.
So that's part of me coming back to Dealer Refresh is, your community offers, a view not just in the dealers, but what's happening in the platforms that support them. And I would not be surprised if another one came up. I am talking to one company that, is trying to work through a 10 DLC migration that may be a challenge.
Yeah, I'm going to reach out, see if there's anyone else that's having these issues. I also wonder how many. Alex, you may be able to answer. Do most of the CRM providers out there offer an internal texting solution, or is it based on like a rebranding of another program such as Twilio, rebranding that so then it's separate of the CRM, or are most of them utilizing the APIs and bringing that into their own CRM platform? And do most of them provide it outside or inside?
I would be absolutely shocked if there was a CRM provider in the car business who was actually building their own full-on texting platform and working directly with the carriers. I'd be shocked.
So you think they're all just sort of skinning something?
There's,
Okay.
I mean, JD, like the amount of effort that goes into working with the carriers directly is insane. And it's changing all the time, like he said. So,
Right. Like you were saying with like texting platform, that can take on a lot of meetings, right? But to Alex's point, he's absolutely correct. The reason why, like, I'll call myself a middleman. The reason why a middleman like myself exists to be able to connect you to the carriers is because good luck doing it yourself. And it's not that they're difficult or anything like that. It's just that they would almost rather have a business services partner. Like they would rather have a centralized relationship with, a Twilio or a Vonage or whatever. And Vonage does the work to help you navigate.
Makes sense.
a metaphor for this might be Shift Digital, for example, Urban Science.
Mm-hmm.
The manufacturer doesn't want to go out and run compliance checks and all that kind of stuff and vet the vendors and everything. So the OEMs hire a middleman like them, and I would assume it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and it's going to be the same. It's the same thing with Meta on WhatsApp, which maybe we could have a WhatsApp episode one time. It's still a little early for the U.S., but internationally, it's almost a must-have. And Meta, you could go direct to Meta using their WhatsApp Business API. They don't want you to.
Oh.
They want you to go to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, WhatsApp has never caught on over here.
Yeah, I mean I could go deep on that. That'd be almost a whole nother episode. But you're right that the US is behind on that being an adopted channel. Like I have WhatsApp on my phone. I have a few friends that prefer to use it for a number of reasons, but SMS
I'm
is
glad
still
it hasn't. I'm glad it hasn't. I don't need another freaking program to send messages in.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. There's going to be a shift at some point. I'm not going to try to like make any predictions, but there is a reason why globally it's a preferred channel elsewhere, and especially for business comms. And if we look at SMS regulations and the moving target that it is, so you think 10 DLC is tough, and it is. Imagine you're a software platform that is truly global, or you're a software platform that has gained some steam and now you're moving internationally. You got a whole bunch of different types of 10 DLCs out there. You have, French regulations, government, and then you have French carriers that have their own rules. And then you get used to that. Then you go to the UK. Then you go to Australia. Then you go to some of the larger regions in Asia, and they're all going to have different rules.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, yeah. WhatsApp would be one set of rules globally, and you're done.
Why would it be one set of rules with them?
Because Meta is
why does that make it any different?
Well, imagine Meta is AT&T, right? In that sense, they are the carrier, they are the entity, they are the regulator, and their product can be distributed for a brand globally over the internet. And they don't have to leverage a carrier network in order to send a message. They can just send it over the internet to an app. And
okay.
So it's one centralized entity that has one set of rules, and there are no limits to, where you take that globally.
Gotcha.
So
but it
sounds like you're trying. It sounds like you're trying to make a prediction without making a prediction.
I'm just saying, that's the challenging alternative. But it doesn't matter for us because we're so far from it in the U.S. SMS is here to stay for a while.
So if we were to have another global pandemic and seems to, this past one gave us QR codes. Might the next one give us WhatsApp?
Good old QR codes. I set up, I had to buy a new TV, and I set up a TV last night, and it took close to an hour just to set it up. Downloading the new software, the firmware, logging in, having to download because it's got the Google platform. Had to download the Google Home app, scan QR codes, scan this QR code, scan that QR code. I bet I scanned 100 freaking QR codes last night. That didn't even count logging into each app individually. QR codes, we bring this up all the time, but we've got a discussion on dealer refresh that's probably the oldest and the largest conversation that's still ongoing, and it's all around QR codes. And when they were first introduced, it was sort of funny. It was interesting but funny, and then the discussion blew up for a while, and then it just simmered because no one was paying attention to QR codes. But post-COVID, it's back. I don't know how many pages that we've got around that discussion, but
40.
It's just been interesting. I mean, QR codes are freaking old. We were coming up with some really cool ideas to utilize them for, and
Hey,
they
Jeff,
just never caught on.
JD just took a dive down that whole thread last night. He knows the answer to
Oh,
the
really?
question, how many pages, and
I mean, I skimmed through it. Like, I won't say the Oracle just took the whole.
JD, do you mind repeating? I think you two were talking over one another. How many pages is it up to now?
43.
43 pages of posts. Okay.
I knew it was in the 40s somewhere.
And does it go back to 2011?
That's
I think
April 4th, 2011. And I was telling Alex before we started this session, in 2011, you guys had it right. You were way before your time, way before it. And then there were 40 pages. So I went like page 1, 2, 6, 15, 25, 35, and because for 4 years, you guys were all talking about things that were massive improvements in a customer experience that could be easily done with a QR code, but the world wasn't there yet. You still had to download an app in order to even scan the damn thing. It typically just took a web page, and if it just takes you to a web page without a good call to action, that's essentially a billboard, but that you can track that they did it. You got that eyeball, they went to that page, but then what happened? Or it's a lead form you won't fill out. So there were a bunch of good ideas, but like either the tech or the trends or the adoption behind it weren't there yet. And then I got to like the last 2 pages, and like the first 40 are like still in 2014. And the last 2 pages, are wild.
There was like 8 years of nothing.
But all of that like framework, all of that foundation that you guys, you were absolutely right. Because then when the time was right, now there's not only the adoption of it, but the technology to be able to do the grand ideas that you have. Like I saw one, and I can figure out where it was and who it was, but really the idea of being able to scan a QR code to actually start a conversation. I think someone had mentioned like an after hours bot, but also that was probably when bots were awful too. So even if you were able to spin up an SMS and have a conversation with a bot, it would probably piss you off. In the last year or so, you look at the advent of generative AI, conversational AI is that much better. Really how dealers or community members in dealer refresh are using GPT is head and shoulders above. And I still think that we need to be careful with like where we put it. Like, it's more for facilitating a task to get you from one step to the next. And where I ideally could see a QR code is I get a freaking tech mailer or I get some sort of mailer where I want to act on it and I can immediately have a conversation to maybe set up an appointment. AI can set up an appointment, and then the salesperson can take care of the nuance that it goes from that. So if we could instead have that QR code not just go to a web page, but spin up a messaging thread, and then that messaging thread has a bot that you don't hate that could actually make something happen and just get you to the next step. The idea would be if we're serving a lead to our CRM that's generated from a QR code, let's make it a laydown. Not just with all the information and the permission, but the actual engagement it needed to happen to have an appointment that shows.
Yeah, if you've got a specific enough use case, I totally agree with you there that you can totally generate an appointment through a bot all day long, especially on trades. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Oil changes, state inspections,
And it kind of goes to like just a general theme of like, let's have conversations, not send notifications, right? Like a lot of businesses have gotten used to the idea of SMS being basically a time sensitive email. It's got a high read rate. They read it fast. It's going to have guaranteed engagement. But if we're still sending a one-way sort of communication that is similar to an email, it's still operating as an email. But it's a conversational channel that if you can prompt some sort of conversation, you're not only going to have higher interest and engagement, less opt out, things like that. You're going to allow it to carry you from that one step in the journey to the next. Like eventually you want to get them on the phone, right? But
Sure.
I used to like sell this point at Podium that if they don't want to pick up, they're not going to answer. Doesn't matter if it's a local number calling them. Doesn't matter if you're really good on the phones. So being able to leverage another channel that can seamlessly take them to a voice conversation is another piece. Like spinning up all these different channels is one thing, but linking them together and using them to the potential that they have in each phase of it is key.
I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, baby steps, right? Like putting a virtual assistant on a QR code that goes to a messaging thread is fully able. Like it's already being done. Like you can do that pretty easily.
When you were reading through that thread, there was probably a lot. If I recall, there was a lot of cool ideas everyone had come up with back when it was first being introduced. There's probably ones that back then you couldn't do because there was a barrier in the technology, and now there's not. I'm going to have to go back through there and read some of those myself.
I can't even find the thread. Somebody on YouTube was just asking about it, and I am trying to track it down.
It's QR codes in or out, which I think is great because I saw people like years later, like, you in or you out? It's like the votes were changing too. Which is, no, I'm out. No, I'm back in.
Well, hey, I was out for a long time on them.
And now you're in.
Oh, I'm way in. I mean, we've got it. It's a big part of our product now.
Yeah.
He's got a tattoo with a QR code. Just don't ask where it goes.
This is wild, though, Jeff. We've got to figure out where this thread went because it is It's not findable in the search either.
It's got to be.
There's an article, but the link is
found
broken.
it yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, see. Unless it's cap sensitive. I don't know why it
Oh.
would be.
If you search for QR code, it doesn't come up in the search, but if you search for QR codes, plural, then it comes up.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that
we gotta fix that crap.
Talk about a great user experience.
Well, JD, it's definitely been a pleasure. I'm sitting here looking at some of our review notes. We're gonna have you back on because I want to touch on what some of the information and deep dive into some of the text fraud, what dealerships should look out for, what just average consumers should be looking out for. Because I know for one thing, I mean, the text fraud, the messages have quadrupled just over the past year and a half. Don't sign up for anything political because they blow your phone up left and right. But tons of fraud. And anytime that I get something that I know that's fraud, I'll take a screenshot of it and only share it with the family. I share it with my parents. You know, heads up, do not click on this link, especially with my parents. Every time I turn around, one of their phone or browser or something's getting hacked. Like,
You're talking
don't know
more
how,
about
but
like a phishing attempt.
yeah, it's usually what those are.
Yeah.
But I'm sure
Yeah,
there's some other elaborate, frauds out there that somehow utilize text messaging.
I mean, yeah, like we can have an episode about, phishing in general, of like, but what I have, the type of SMS fraud that I come across, which you probably never would know happens, is called toll fraud. And that alone it's something that a software company would incur. Like if you have a software platform that has a login, you're subject to massive amounts of fraud. And that could be a fun topic for the vendor side. But yeah, on the dealer side, how to protect yourself. I can try to dig up some stuff on that too.
It's funny.
Awesome, man.
I've got one I was just looking at yesterday that got blocked by email, fortunately. And I use their texting as well, Jeff. But it was from a what was it called? Police. It was one of those money for the police frauds.
They were
okay.
Yeah. So they moved from the phones to text now. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I get a robo
get a week from someone that always wants to purchase my house or my parents' house.
I wouldn't like for phone calls. It comes from a 703 area code. I know it's BS because I live in Colorado for the last 10 years, but I have a 703 number.
I have the same thing. I'm in an 802 area code now in Vermont, but my phone number is still 757 from Virginia. So,
but they are moving to text message, and I'm getting my phone has a disease that has not yet gotten a cure because my phone number is just all over the place, and I've never changed it, and I've entered it into far too many lead forms, I guess. But I'm starting to get ones like, "Hey, Angela, I'm going camping this weekend. Do you want to come with me?" Like weird ones that it's like, one, I'm not Angela. Two, what? And then also I'll respond stop to them. And sometimes it'll be a software platform that, has a response, but all those political,
we'll definitely have.
Yeah, just respond stop.
Yeah.
See what.
Yeah, I'm always typing out stop. Yeah. But somehow, I swear, I just put you on more list one way or another.
Like hitting unsubscribe in an email.
Yeah.
They're opening that email and they're clicking it.
That's helping their reply rate.
Yep. Engagement through the roof. Look what we got you.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys having me on. This is fun. I'm more than happy to do more episodes. And yeah, we can pick a topic and dive in.
We will do
Yeah, we'll
that.
definitely have you on. Yeah, we'll definitely have you back on. Again, I want to touch on the fraud, and we really didn't touch on AI. I'd be curious to see how AI is going to be implemented across your industry and find out what the advantages may or may not be. So, if anyone wants to, if someone would want to reach out to you, well, you're in the forums, and I'll link to your profile. That way, you don't have to share a bunch of information because it's. I mean, you're not selling anything. So I'll make sure that
Well,
gets
to the
posted over
vendors,
the
he
forum.
is.
Yes, that's true.
But for
Well,
dealers, I'm just
if there's any vendors listening and they need some services from you, how would they reach out to you?
well, I mean, if they're in dealer refresh, yeah, they're more than welcome to DM me. And then on LinkedIn, they can reach out to me. Just find my name. There's not too many Higginbothams out there.
There's two, and both of you you have to put dots, so J dot D dot, in order to get you to come up, because there's ones who don't use the dots and they pop up before you.
That's good.
I was
Yeah,
trying to
just
find a
Can't be
picture
me, I'm out there.
for something the other day.
yeah.
Nice.
That I'll have to you put like Higginbotham Vonage or something. Then you have to know how to spell my last name. So maybe I'm just a tough guy to get a hold of, but certainly open to any and all conversations.
Jeff and I can help you find him if you're struggling.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, JD. Thanks again. You guys have a good weekend.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah.